You know the feature of the phone where the accelerometer will determine if you're holding it portrait or landscape to how you want to read an article? Just that signal, which is available to every app all the time, tells a data harvester, is Jan moving? Is Jan laying down? Is Jan in a car? Is Jan exercising? What's happening is the app, even when it's not being used, is sending off this information to a data harvester who is selling that to a data broker.
Today I sit down with Joe Weil, CEO of Unplugged. We explore how smartphones quietly track our every move and how that data can be purchased and used to build detailed profiles of individual people.
And this is just publicly available?
It's publicly available, it's purchasable. So yes, anyone can do it. Criminals can do it, private investigators can do it, advertisers can do it, the CCP can do it, our own government can do it.
Weil calls out Apple and Google as key players in this data economy and explains how Unplugged aims to give users real control with a privacy-first smartphone.
This is a national security issue, it's an economic issue, it's a cultural issue, it's a civil liberties issue.
A revealing look at what your phone really knows. This is American Thought Leaders, and I'm Yanya Kellick.
Joe Weil, such a pleasure to have you on American Thought Leaders.
Thank you, Jan. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's say I'm a high-end digital marketer or a Chinese Communist Party spy or a government agent. What can I find out relatively quickly about me from my cell phone and from my digital presence?
Unfortunately, quite a lot, Jan. The way it works is our phones and the apps on them are subsidized by advertising information, which exists in databases that advertisers can purchase, but anyone can purchase it. And the main thing that is obtainable is your location all of the time, but not just your location, the other people you co-locate with. So who you're at home with, who you're at work with, who you go to the gym with, who you might have another hobby with. All of this information is easily discernible to create what are called patterns of life. And the details of our lives are really discoverable first from our location, but then also what we look at on our phones, what sites we visit, what apps we have on our phone, things like this. So advertisers are able to put together, think of it like a three-dimensional topographical map of the relationships of the people in the country, where they go, and also what they do on their phones in many cases. So it's very easy to discern, for example, if the government or the CCP or anyone wanted to find out, hey, show me the folks in the country who go to this particular denomination. That is immediately discernible. Show me the people who go to gun shops. Immediately discernible. Show me the people who go to crypto conventions. Immediately discernible. And that's just groups. You can also use the same data to locate individuals and say, oh, okay, I happen to know that a person works here and their kid goes to school here. You can buy cell phone data from an area, apply those two location filters, and follow that phone around in real time to determine where they sleep, who else sleeps in the house. It's pretty shocking.
And basically you're saying you can kind of triangulate. The individual level data is not available, right? Like how can you kind of triangulate
It is
someone?
Discernible. If you recall, Dinesh D'Souza made a really interesting documentary about the 2020 election and individual phones that were going from drop boxes to NGOs. Mm-hmm. It's the same technology. Mm-hmm. So the way it works is you buy, for an advertising campaign, you buy the smartphone location data for a whole area, and then you can apply filters. You can say, okay, here's all the phones from Washington, D.C. Show me the phones. I have millions of phones. Show me the phones that have gone to 101 Constitution Avenue and this Equinox gym that I happen to know Jan goes to. Okay, there's 100 phones. Interesting. Now, I've heard him mention that he really likes this one pub. Show me any of these 100 phones that have been to that pub. Oh, there's only one. Now I've found the IMEI, or the identifier of that phone. And I can use that IMEI against any other location data, any other location of smartphone data. So I can say, all right, did that phone also go to Hong Kong? Great, where was it in Hong Kong? So now I've got your pattern of life in DC and another place you may have gone. It's incredible.
And then, all sorts of things you might not want to people to know about. Let's say you went, I don't know, maybe you had a top secret meeting with someone, right?
Yes, this is a big issue. So all of our government agents, operators, private people in private business are facing this problem where you go is easily discoverable from advertising data from smartphones.
And this is just publicly available?
It's publicly available. It's purchasable. We have a friend named Mike Yeagley. He's the primary subject of Means of Control, Byron Tao's great book that really lifted the curtain on this. And Mike sort of became famous because he purchased data and showed the head of the DoD, here's the home addresses of an entire Delta team. So he purchased some advertising data, used some open source information, and got the home addresses of some of our most secret people. So yeah, this is purchasable, and what's I think very important is not only is it purchasable, it is not protected with Fourth Amendment protections. So the government does not require warrants to access this. So this is important. If the government wants to track your location from the cell phone carrier and say, hey, AT&T, show me where Jan is all the time, they need a warrant to get AT&T to give that over, unless, of course, it's 2021 and AT&T wants to give the information over to the Justice Department. But normally it would require a warrant. This information, this advertising information, falls under a legal distinction called third-party doctrine. This was established in the Warren Court in the 70s. And it basically says that when a customer hands over data willingly to a third party, it loses Fourth Amendment protections. This was originally applied to banking data and phone company data, some metadata that was in those accounts. But now it's applied to all the app data, all the advertising data coming from our apps. So this whole pipeline I just described to you, which allows us to be discoverable as individuals and also to be profiled in groups. Who's Christian, who's Muslim, who's, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of this is not Fourth Amendment protected. So yes, anyone can do it. Criminals can do it, private investigators can do it, advertisers can do it, the CCP can do it, our own government can do it.
I'm excited to talk to you about how your company Unplugged is trying to kind of challenge this whole reality. Before we go there, I mean, you have a fascinating background, right? And just tell me about kind of how you came into your current work.
I had been in the advertising business. I had a really exciting company in the advertising production business in New York. My family had been in that business. In 2013, a friend and mentor of mine had suggested, hey, why don't we start a video app? This was at the time when apps were starting to do a lot on our phones. If you recall, the big shift in mobile was with LTE, getting pretty fast data to your phone. That's when Instagram and Snapchat and all Pinterest and WhatsApp, all this happened in a very quick period. So in this gold rush of apps, I was one of those people who built an app, or put together a team and built an app. And Apple acquired that application, and it became part of the iPhone. It became a video editing product on the iPhone. And I entered Apple in 2015 and built a team there doing like 0 to 1 projects, new efforts in the services domain that leveraged hardware capabilities of the phone. So this ranged from many things, from on-device intelligence. If you have an iPhone and it suggests who you might share a photo with, we helped design that. To even well-being products on iPhone, like the journal application. But we really focus on how to use the hardware to create new, special, sticky customer experiences. It was a wonderful place to do that. I mean, in many ways, it's a company that I always really looked up to. Apple's communications in the 90s, when Steve came back and sort of refounded the company, really spoke to me. This freedom-oriented, individualistic, creative, pioneering vibe, the think different direction really spoke to me. At first, it was a totally non-political or apolitical environment. No one talked about politics at work. I really liked that. That changed in 2016 when the president was elected to his first term. And the change began with small comments, criticizing Trump, criticizing Trump supporters. And it quickly picked up steam. I recall in 2018 into 2019, as the Me Too movement started kicking up, really high energy discussions about like who should and shouldn't be allowed on the internet were happening at work. And in COVID, this really hit a fever pitch. And I think two things sort of happened in symbiosis. Number one, the origin of COVID became something you could not talk about at work, and as I understood it, was really sort of policed on the platform. And then, of course, when George Floyd died, that kicked off this giant sort of Maoist racial reckoning inside the company. Here I was looking around, and that was the first moment where I was like, I might really not be able to make a difference here. And this really might be a force against the health of civilization. This might be an anti-civilization force that I'm supporting. And over the subsequent years, that was really the moment where I started really seeing this. And over the following couple of years, I really, I was an advocate in the company for my beliefs. I was very open about my perspective about things. I wasn't silenced, but it was certainly uncomfortable. And I guess I really realized, like, do I want to build a company that my sons couldn't work at? Because that's what I was doing. I was helping grow an organization that explicitly was showing me it wouldn't hire my sons, who are white men. And that for me was when I saw at that time, I saw my now partner Eric Prince on a podcast talking about a new smartphone platform based on values we shared. That's when I said, I think it might be time to do this.
Joe, we're going to take a quick break, and folks, we're going to be right back. And we're back with the CEO of Unplugged, Joe Weil. You were discussing, how you can triangulate on a person, get unbelievable amounts of highly personal data on an individual person based on public sourced information that's available for not a lot of money, quite frankly. With AI now, you can, kind of anyone can probably do that. Just say, hey, buy this, get me this data. Or you don't even have to ask that. You could just say, here's what I want, and it'll give you a price. And then you'll get the answer. Or
the way I would say it is, like, you can now take the data you can download from an online marketer and use an LLM to give you very high resolution analysis of it. So the way to think about it is LLMs have democratized data analysis. So the data's there. The problem number one is the data's there. Our country is designed so that data like this is not out there. The whole premise of the Fourth Amendment, even in Article 1, Article 1, right after Congress establishes money, they establish the post office. And it sounds so mundane to us. The post office is like this boring, kind of snoopy part of our culture now. But it was a revolutionary idea that there would be a public utility that enabled private communication. And one of the big arguments the founders made in their debates about the need for the post office was it was the way people outside of cities got newspapers. So the post office was the internet of the time, and it was designed to be private. The Post Office Act of 1792 made it a felony, and it's still a felony, hundreds of years later, to open someone else's mail. They made it a felony for a postal worker to describe or sell information about your parcels. That's still a felony. So our country's designed and coded with these protections in the Bill of Rights, with institutions like the post office designed to protect our information, our private letters. And now we're living in this new world that the Constitution didn't really envision, with none of these standards, expectations, or protections. And the downside here is when we have an adversary like the CCP, who, we're familiar with unrestricted warfare, the idea that we're basically in this gray zone war in which everything is a battlefield, from viruses to stock market fluctuations to news manipulation. This is a massive vulnerability that we're living in right now.
It sounds like you're suggesting that, data should be treated the same way the post office was treated, right? Or something in that vein.
And my view here is, my view is twofold. Yes, our data should be treated the way the post office was treated parcels. But I would say, as important, we should not assume that any government or leader is going to do that for us. Mm-hmm. We, as Americans, are going to have to insist on better products. Come on, my goodness, here we are in Washington. Like, are we under the impression that, given all the financial interests at stake and all the incentives I just described, that Congress is going to somehow protect us from this? No, I mean, there's too much money to be made here. I think the opportunity for us is to return ourselves to the structure, nature, protections of our republic, to insist as customers on better products.
I'm obviously concerned about this data harvesting. How is it that my life can be better or safer, right? Working with, for example, an Unplugged product.
So our goal, there's other products in this space. So the main message I want to send to people is explore alternatives. And we have I believe, the best one of them, but find the right one for you, but find alternatives, and there are many. This notion that we have to sacrifice freedom and safety for convenience is an illusion. And a lot of technology trends are making possible today what was not possible even a few years ago for new platforms to exist, and we're one of them. So what do we offer? We offer a smartphone platform, meaning it's a phone and it's a software ecosystem that is designed on a few really key differentiating elements. Number one, we make no money at all, directly or indirectly, from customer data, and we give customers tools to make it harder for third parties to get their data. And there's layers of this. So the way I would describe the smartphone data safety sphere, it's like a diamond with different facets, and we're bringing protection to each one. So the first key here is, when you're talking about this space, there's a tendency to think like, how do I get off the grid? How do I totally remove myself, turn the signal to zero? And I would encourage us to take a less black and white attitude towards this. Obviously, we want to get the signal as close to zero as possible. But I think that there's a tendency to look for fantastical scenarios that are not realistic. Our goal here is to get better and better and better and reduce the digital footprint in many, many ways. So what is one of the most important ways that our digital footprint grows out is with this third-party data harvesting. This is the big open front door. There are other ways too. There's first-party data harvesting, which has other risks, but the greatest risk is this third-party data harvesting. So how do we help with that? We have a firewall on the phone. Normally, firewalls historically have been handled on the server side, meaning they're like a server is routing traffic and saying, oh, don't go to this server because it's a known data harvester. We redesigned this concept because we think it's much better to have this solution on the device rather than outsourced to a server. So we redesigned the flow of it so it's optimized to be able to run on a phone. And it also gives you a lot more resolution into what apps are making what calls. So the firewall is one example of how the phone is stopping traffic to allow this third-party data harvesting to occur. That does not mean by any stretch that the phone stops all digital signal to all apps. Nothing like that. Of course not. What it is doing, though, is turning the dial down a lot on the information spewing out of the phone. So I'll just give you an example. We had a cyber company compare our phone versus an iPhone and a Samsung and also a Pixel. And I'll just use the iPhone for an example. 1 hour, 33 apps on the phone, all the apps we use, Spotify, Pinterest, whatever, Expedia, things like this. And the cyber tester just opened the app, did a little scroll, go to a page, next app, 1 hour. On the iPhone, the cyber tester selected Ask App Not to Track on every app. Yet, in that 1 hour period, those 33 apps made 3,181 connections to known data harvesting servers and exchanged in that 1 hour 211,000 packets of data, which is about 60 packets of data a second. And our phone stopped all of those. So this is an example. Does that mean that the phone is untraceable and you go completely dark? No, it means that it is a significant reduction in noise coming off the phone to these third-party data sets. There's other layers of it, though, that we think are also important. This is why we design the hardware, software, and services around this privacy issue. So I just described the firewall. There's another unique feature of our phone. It sounds very simple, but in addition to a on-off software button where I can turn the phone off, it has a hardware switch which separates the battery from the electronics. It's like putting the phone in a Faraday bag, except better. Like, it's really off. The phone is dead when you turn this switch. This may sound simple, but it's pretty important. A lot of times we turn our phone off and don't realize it can still be emitting signal. It can still be waking up and phoning home. Oh, here I am, let me get that update, etc. So this hardware switch prevents that. Other important tools like data deletion and hardening tools. So like I have a feature set on my phone where it's routinely wiping the memory of the phone, which makes it basically impenetrable to Cellbrite and other software that agencies or criminals can use to literally unlock the phone by putting a wire in it and running some software and opening the phone, in which case all of your data would be available. So whether it's blocking traffic, protecting the actual data on the device if someone gets their hands on it, or being able to turn the phone physically off, these are all surfaces where we're offering a lot more protection, whereas the other phones are designed to maximize profit for the company that makes them, ours is designed to protect the information of the customer. We don't make any money off of residual usage.
There's this trade-off which is described where you have to trade liberty for safety. What you're describing here is achieving more safety through what seems to be actual more liberty as well, which I really like and I want to explore further.
This is a really great way to put it, Jan. I think this idea that we've had, especially since the Patriot Act, and we've lived through this ever encroaching specter of surveillance, and how are we going to be safe in this new internet society, right? This theme has come up again and again, like just as you describe it, that our liberty has to be reduced in order for us to be safe. And our founders grappled with this. Again, like, we don't have to look elsewhere for answers. They faced these same questions when they designed our legal system, which protects innocence in such a way that they said, boy, a lot of guilty people are going to go free with this system. And they said, yeah, but we need to do that because the much greater risk is the government being able to tyrannize people. So I think we're facing a similar moment that our founders faced, and we get to mimic and learn from their wisdom. That in fact, by sacrificing liberty in order to get safety, as you said it, we'll have neither. By insisting on products that protect our liberty, we are also more safe. The same thing that makes us vulnerable to civil liberties violations in the United States from our government, us being profiled as citizens in ways we should never be by the government, makes us vulnerable from the CCP and other adversaries, finding us, tracking us, knowing whose arm to twist. I mentioned Yeagley and his work exposing, look, I just bought some data and here's the home addresses of a Delta team. The actual start of that book, which chronicles all of his wild stories, was him pointing out many DoD employees who were using an application called Grindr, which is a hookup app for gay guys. And he was saying, hey, listen, let 1,000 flowers bloom, your business. However, all of the information from this app tells our adversaries who might be in the closet and not sharing this with their family, meaning they're going to a gay bar and then home with their wife. That becomes a huge opportunity for an adversary to know, oh, I can put pressure on this guy. And that's just one grain of sand on the beach of data exploits that we're vulnerable to with this third-party data. So yeah, I think your observation that our path towards constitutional liberty is also our path towards national security in this case. They're not divergent. In fact, they're the same.
Well, Joe Weil, it's such a pleasure to have had you on.
Jan, thank you so much. It's been a delight to be here.
Thank you all for joining Joe Weil and me on this episode of American Thought Leaders. I'm your host, Jan Jekielek.